Karen called the cops over my fence, but I'm not in her HOA. I didn't move here to start a war. I moved here to breathe. After 20 years of working tech contracts in 3 different states, I'd finally saved enough to buy a modest ranch-style home in the quiet hills just outside Pine Brook. Not inside the town limits, just outside, and that mattered. My name's Alan Brooks, 42, divorced, father of a fiercely independent daughter and 2 very vocal beagles. And until 3 weeks ago, I didn't even know what an HOA Karen was. I do now. It all started with a fence, a 6-foot privacy fence, cedar planks, clean lines, sturdy posts, installed by a local contractor with permits signed, surveyed, and stamped. The land was mine, an acre of it, to be exact. Not rented, not leased. Mine. 3 days after construction finished, she showed up. Her name was Cynthia Kepler, 50-something, bleach blonde bob, clipboard clutched like a weapon, and a visor that screamed power trip. She didn't knock. She stood at the end of my driveway, took photos of the fence, then flagged me down while I was walking the dogs. "You can't have that here," she said without even saying hello. I blinked. "Sorry. What the fence? It's non-compliant with the Pine Brook Hills HOA fencing standards. Maximum height is 4 feet, unpainted, and no vertical pickets." I gave her a polite smile. "I'm not in Pine Brook Hills." She squinted at me, as if I'd just told her gravity didn't apply on my property. "Your house is within visual range of the community entrance," she snapped. "That affects curb continuity." I laughed. Out loud. That was my first mistake. 2 days later, I came home from work and found a red envelope taped to my garage door. Violation notice, fence non-compliant, $150 fine issued by Pine Brook Hills Visual Impact Compliance Board, due in 7 days to avoid further penalties. I stood there staring at it, genuinely confused. This wasn't just ridiculous, it was unsettling. Someone had crossed the boundary between a nuisance and a threat. The next day, I found paint sprayed on my side of the fence. "Remove it or face enforcement." I went straight to the county clerk, showed them the notice. The woman behind the desk sighed like she'd seen this movie before. "You're not in any HOA," she said. "You're in unincorporated county land. Your permits are clean." "Then what is this?" I asked, holding up the fake fine. She leaned in and whispered, "Sounds like Cynthia's up to her games again." That night, I set up a camera facing the street, just in case. The footage I captured 2 nights later changed everything. Cynthia walked up to my fence with a can of spray paint. She was mid-tag when a motion light flipped on. She froze like a deer in a courtroom. Then she turned and ran, but not before looking directly into the lens. The next morning, I printed the footage, the permit, and the fake citation, and headed to the sheriff's office. I wasn't just filing a complaint anymore. I was declaring war. Cynthia made a mistake. She didn't just threaten me. She defaced my property, impersonated authority, and crossed a legal line she didn't even know existed. And I don't mean figuratively. I mean the actual county line. The sheriff's office took my report seriously. Deputy Avery, a calm guy with a buzz cut and a weather-worn face, reviewed the camera footage twice, then looked up at me. "She tagged your fence and left this?" he asked, holding up the printed violation. "Yep. She also filed a nuisance complaint with us," he added. "Said your fence was obstructing the character of her subdivision. But here's the thing, your house isn't even in her jurisdiction." I nodded. "That's what the county clerk told me too. I'm outside Pine Brook Hills by almost 800 feet. He raised an eyebrow. "You mind if I take this further up the chain?" "Please do." Later that afternoon, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected, Detective Sherry Yates, a former code enforcement officer who joined the sheriff's investigation unit last year. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "this isn't the first time we've had issues with Ms. Kepler, but it's the first time we've caught her on video. She met me on my property 2 hours later. Together, we reviewed the fence line, surveyed the plat, and she took a copy of my permits. She's running a fake compliance network, Yates said. She sent dozens of these citations to nearby homes. Most just pay them to avoid drama. But there's no HOA jurisdiction here. None. I felt my jaw tighten. How long's this been going on? At least a year, possibly longer. She claims to represent Pine Brook Hills, but when we called the actual HOA board, they said she's no longer affiliated. You're telling me she's rogue? She's worse than rogue. She's reinvented herself as a one-woman enforcement squad. We think she's been fabricating citations using the HOA's old design templates and enforcing them on non-member properties. My stomach turned. What's the motive control Money Yates flipped through her notepad? Bit of both. She's collected thousands in fines from elderly residents in the area. Some say they thought it was real. Others were too afraid to question it. And just like that, my fence became ground zero in something much bigger. The next day, a local news crew showed up. They'd gotten wind of the sheriff's investigation. A young reporter named Jason asked if I'd go on camera. Just a few words. People need to understand this isn't just a petty neighbor dispute. I agreed, but I made it clear I didn't want fame. I wanted this to stop. The interview aired that evening. I watched from my couch with Claire curled beside me and both dogs at our feet. In the segment, they showed the footage of Cynthia tagging my fence, the fake citation, and my statement. This isn't about fences. It's about abuse of power, about pretending to have authority you don't. And I won't be bullied off my own land. The response, immediate. The next day, 4 more neighbors knocked on my door with similar red envelopes. Some dated back months. One woman, Mrs. Howard, said she'd paid over $600 across multiple infractions. I just didn't want trouble, she whispered. She said if I didn't pay, the county could seize my shed. I saw red. That's when we formed the Backline Coalition. Just a few neighbors at first, myself, Mrs. Howard, a contractor named Eli, and a retired airman named Russ. All of us had been targeted. We gathered our documents, timelines, receipts. We mapped every red envelope. We created a website and shared the footage from my camera. Within 3 days, we had emails from dozens of homeowners. The total money Cynthia had extorted over $43,000, all under the pretense of a fake HOA. But Cynthia wasn't done. 3 nights after the news aired, I woke to find my gate smashed in. Not cut, not unlocked, smashed, with tire tracks leading off the gravel path and into the brush. I called the sheriff again. They were there in minutes. Deputy Avery scanned the damage and turned to me. She's escalating. Let her, I said quietly, because now she's not just threatening property. She's threatening safety. We installed a motion-detecting spotlight system, wired the cameras to cloud backup, and notified neighbors to do the same. I was done reacting. Now I was building a case. When someone smashes your gate in the middle of the night, you stop thinking it's just about a fence. You realize it's about fear and the people who use it to feel powerful. But fear only works if you're alone, and I wasn't alone anymore. We took the fight public, not for drama, for defense. The Backline Coalition. What started as 5 neighbors with red envelopes had grown to over 40 homeowners across 2 counties. People who had been quietly fined, threatened, and coerced by Cynthia's fake compliance network. Detective Yates helped us create a secure evidence repository. She called in a district prosecutor. The charges were adding up: property damage, impersonating a public official, mail fraud, elder abuse, criminal trespass. But Cynthia didn't back down. She doubled down. 3 days after my gate was smashed, she called the police on me. I kid you not, I was in my backyard installing a reinforced post when 2 deputies pulled into my drive. Lights flashing. One of them, a younger guy named Brenner, approached me carefully. Sir, we received a report that you're erecting an illegal structure that violates HOA zoning. I let out a long breath. You're kidding? No, sir. The complainant said you're ignoring HOA warnings and expanding a non-permitted enclosure. I didn't yell, didn't laugh, just walked to my truck, opened the glove box, and handed him my county zoning map. property line plat, and the permit folder, the one I now kept in my truck at all times. Deputy Brenner skimmed the papers. His partner joined him. They huddled, exchanged quiet words, and came back. "We're sorry, sir. You're clearly within your rights. You're not part of any HOA. We'll file the report, but there's no violation here." "Appreciate that," I said, "but do me a favor. What's that next time Cynthia Kepler calls dispatch? Maybe let her know impersonating code enforcement is a felony." He nodded, embarrassed. "Understood." We posted the footage of the deputy visit on the coalition website. It went viral. People were outraged, not just neighbors, everyone. Comments poured in from other towns, other states, people who dealt with the same nonsense. Fake HOAs, overreaching busybodies, unauthorized fines. News stations ran follow-ups. Online blogs picked it up. Even Reddit caught on your fence justice became a trending thread. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy with the fence. I was a symbol, a rallying cry. And Cynthia, she was spiraling. We learned she had created 3 fake HOA organizations, all tied to unregistered LLCs. Her Visual Integrity Task Force, Pine Brook Civic Watch, and Regional Residential Harmony Bureau were just names on sticker paper designed to intimidate. She'd sent out over 500 fake violations. Some homes outside Pine Brook received letters stamped with HOA Code Enforcement, Level 3. What the hell does that even mean? Yates got a warrant for Cynthia's home. What we found shocked even her. Inside a locked cabinet were multiple seal embossers, unused violation templates labeled by severity, 17 cashier's checks totaling over $38,000, a laptop with property maps, marked in color codes, green compliant, yellow targeted, red non-compliant threats. But it was the handwritten ledger that made me sit down. She had notes beside each homeowner: quiet, will pay, angry but old, disabled, won't fight, military, watch out. My name circled 3 times in red ink, labeled defiant, escalate. That night, we held a town hall. Over 100 people packed into the VFW hall near Pine Brook. Many brought red envelopes. One woman sobbed as she described Cynthia threatening to report her for leaving a grill outside too long. Another family said they were scared to renovate their windows because the HOA might find out. None of these people were under HOA jurisdiction. None of them had done anything wrong. They had just been manipulated quietly, consistently, and confidently. And then I got a surprise. Detective Yates stood and announced the next move. "Based on Mr. Brooks' footage and your testimonies," she said, "we filed criminal charges against Cynthia Kepler. She is being arrested tonight." The room broke into applause. Cheers. Tears. Neighbors hugged. People stood up straighter. You could feel the fear lifting. But as for me, I didn't cheer. I waited, because something told me this wasn't over yet. And I was right. The night Cynthia Kepler was arrested, I thought it was over. I thought the fake citations would stop, the intimidation, the fear. But predators like Cynthia don't act alone. They breed in silence, and she'd built herself a network. 12 hours after her arrest, my inbox blew up. 6 new violations were taped to the homes of coalition members, this time stamped by something called the Pine Brook Defense Collective. Same font, same red envelope, same threats. But this time, no Cynthia. That meant one thing. She had copycats. Detective Yates moved quickly. We subpoenaed the HOA printer found in Cynthia's house and cross-referenced the ink types, stamps, and formatting, all identical. But the Pine Brook Defense Collective, that was new, no registration, no contact number, just a post office box and a logo of a hawk's talon wrapped around a house, aggressive, designed to scare. We set a trap. Eli, one of the founding members of the Backline Coalition, offered to bait the next move. His home had just received its second fake citation. We installed motion sensors, hidden trail cams, and linked the porch light to remote activation. 2 nights later, it happened. At 3:08 a.m., a figure in a hoodie crept up the driveway, walked with purpose, taped a red envelope to the mailbox, As they turned to leave, the lights snapped on. The trail cams caught everything. A black sedan parked at the curb, a second person at the wheel, and the courier, not a teen, not a petty prankster. A man in his 50s wearing a jacket with community operations embroidered on the sleeve. We traced the plates. They belonged to a company owned by a former Pine Brook HOA board member, Jeffrey Langston. He'd served with Cynthia. Stepped down for health reasons 2 years ago. Turns out he'd been quietly helping her run the fake HOA empire behind the scenes. And now, with Cynthia in jail, he had taken the reins. We raided Langston's home. Inside, a burner laptop, dozens of blank red envelopes, cash ledgers, emails with Cynthia, referencing target maps, payment tallies, and uncooperative threats. And most damning of all, a recorded voicemail from Cynthia, dated 2 days before her arrest. If they come after me, Jeff, you know what to do. Take care of Brooks. Quietly. He's the one that started all this. Don't let him get the others riled up. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch with a rifle across my lap and my dogs at my feet. Claire slept inside. Safe. For now, but for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt since I left the Army targeted. The next morning, I went back to the sheriff's office. Not to complain, to fight. We've treated this like an isolated fraud ring. I told Yates. But it's bigger than that. They're building a shadow enforcement system, one fake HOA at a time. They prey on fear, target the vulnerable, and they're not stopping. She looked at me for a long time, then nodded. You're right. We worked around the clock that week, mapped every fake HOA that had sent notices under Cynthia or Langston's alias network. From Pine Brook to Marlow Bend, to the edge of Birch Creek, some were just 2 houses, others whole unincorporated communities. We called the Attorney General. They launched an emergency joint task force with county prosecutors. The final break came when Ramos, one of Yates's tech deputies, cracked Langston's burner laptop. It had a full list of residents flagged for noncompliance. They weren't just documenting people, they were classifying them. Color codes, symbols, elderly marked as non-resistant, military vets avoid direct contact. Right, women living alone, high revenue, repeat fine candidates, bilingual families, language barrier, persistent notice zone. It was a target list, and I was circled in black. Next to my name, mobilizer, dangerous if unchecked, neutralized quietly. We presented the data in a county hearing. It shook the room. People gasped. Cries of outrage. One woman collapsed crying. And me, I stood at the podium and said 3 words. Never. Again. Here. Langston was arrested the next morning. Cynthia was denied bail. Their network was dismantled within 2 weeks. We froze every bank account linked to the fraudulent LLCs. Restitution was issued. And for every red envelope, we printed a blue one marked void with a seal from the State Property Protection Division. But the final showdown that happened on my land, because 2 days before Langston's arraignment, someone firebombed my fence. I lost the whole west line. My dogs were okay. Claire was shaken, but safe. The fire department caught it fast, but the damage was done. Not to the fence, to the idea of safety, and that had to end. The fire didn't take my house, but it came too damn close to taking my peace. The west fence line was a charred skeleton, smoke still curling in the dawn light. My beagles had howled until I reached them. Claire stood barefoot in the hallway, clutching her sketchbook, her eyes wide and wordless. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I rebuilt. The investigation confirmed what I already knew: accelerant poured at the fence base, ignited from the roadside. A deliberate act. Retaliation. Langston and Cynthia may have been in custody, but their rot had soaked deep into this land enough to convince some coward that torching a fence was the last shot in their losing war. They were wrong, because that morning, I didn't just rebuild my fence, I rewrote the boundary. The county responded with force. The sheriff's department is stationed patrol near my property. Deputies went door to door reassuring residents. Fire services offered free inspections for any targeted homes. The state AG's office launched a hotline and published a blacklist of all fake HOA-related LLCs statewide. But what mattered most was what happened next. 2 days after the fire, Claire and I stood in the field with new planks stacked beside us. She held up one scorched board and said, "What if we left this one in, so we remember?" I nodded. "Let's make it the first." By noon, half the town was there. Eli brought his crew. Mrs. Howard brought lemonade. Kids painted signs, "Our land, our rules, fake HOAs, burn in truth. Justice can't be fined." We turned the rebuild into a community event. Laughter replaced fear. Hammers echoed like heartbeats. The fence didn't just rise, it became a monument. A week later, Cynthia and Langston stood before the judge in a courtroom packed wall to wall. Residents sat shoulder to shoulder, holding copies of fake citations and county maps. I sat beside Claire, her sketchbook now filled with drawings of fences, flames, and a phoenix rising from them all. The verdict: guilty. 31 counts between them. 20 years for Langston, 25 for Cynthia plus restitution, public apology, and permanent removal from any civic position statewide. They didn't speak during sentencing, but I did. I stood at the front of that courtroom, took a breath, and said, "Cynthia told me I needed permission to build a fence. She thought lines on paper gave her power over people she'd never met. But real boundaries don't divide us. They define us. They're made of respect, not rules. And the only authority worth following is the kind that serves, not seizes." Applause erupted. Even the judge paused before nodding. We renamed the coalition from backline to frontline, not just for the fight we won, but the fights we helped others face. We created a nonprofit backed by the state AG, offering legal help and public awareness on fake HOA abuse, property intimidation, and elderly exploitation. Claire even designed the logo, a line of fences rising into a sunrise. Today, the fence still stands. We left one scorched board in the center, signed by every neighbor who showed up that day. Claire framed her drawing. It hangs above our fireplace, beside my army pin and my father's dog tags. Sometimes I catch people slowing their cars to read the new sign at the edge of my land. It says, "You've reached the boundary of the HOA." Here, truth begins. This wasn't just my story. It was the story of hundreds, thousands. Because power only works when we believe we don't have any. If someone knocks on your door with a clipboard and no right to be there, question it. If someone fines you without cause, fight it. And if someone tries to burn down your fence, rebuild it taller, together. Have you ever faced fake authority, false power, or someone who tried to silence your voice? Share your story. Stand your ground. Because community isn't made of rules. It's made of us.